Assalamu alaikum students. This is Farwa Batul, your O-level computer science instructor, and welcome to another video. In the previous video, we have started a very important programming concept that is known as iterations. And here in this video, I will be discussing about the count control loop in detail. Yes, there are three different type of loop structures that we can use in order to perform iterations. So the first one is a count control loop. What is the good thing about a count control loop? It is actually used when you have a set number of iterations. It means you exactly know that how many times the block of code is going to iterate, how many times you have to repeat a certain line of code. So when the number of iterations are fixed, let's suppose you want to print your name 5 times. So you know that number of times the code that must repeat is fixed. In that case, you are going to use a count control loop. So in this video, I will be particularly talking about Python as my programming language in order to teach you about a count control loop. Okay, Python programming language uses a for loop in order to do iterations in a fixed way. So how we are using the for loops in Python, let me just quickly show you the code first and then I will explain you this. Okay, so let's talk about the syntax for the for loop. Here, you will be using a for keyword and then you have to just declare any variable or a counter actually. A counter is something that is going to specify that how many times your code is going to run, how many iterations will be there. So counter is a must thing. Either you can name it counter or you can name it x, y, z, it's up to you. But remember that it specifies the number of time your code is going to run or you will iterate. For counter, in is your keyword. Then you are here using a range function. A range function basically specifies the number of times you are going to iterate. It is going to tell the start and the end. Let's suppose I want to do it 10 times. So I will provide the counter the initial value as 1 and the end value must be, if you want it 10 times, then make it 11. You have to just make it greater than 10 because it is going to have this one your start and this one your end. So it is not going to run 11th time. It will run from 1 to 10 if you will specify your starting as 1 and your ending is 11. So keep in the mind that you must uh, specify the end plus 1 time. It means that if it is 10 times, then you make it 11, your endpoint. If it is 20 times, then you have to make it 21. It is not going to iterate for the last number. So this is how you are specifying the range in your Python or in your for loop in Python. So now, let's just quickly tell you that what to do inside the for loop. Inside the for loop, all of your line of code is going to be indented. Yes, indentation is important because indentation is going to tell you that all of this line of code must run inside your loop. It is part of your loop. So let's suppose I want to print the value of the counter every time the loop iterates. So here we go. This is a very simple code. Let me just quickly tell you that what can be the output of this. Okay. So this is a for loop. The counter has initial value 1 because the specified range is from 1 till 10. So if the counter is equal to 1, then when the loop will run first time, let's just quickly see that. The loop is going to run for the first time. It will see the print statement and inside the print statement, you are printing the value of your counter. So the first time the loop runs, the counter is going to have a value Counter is actually a variable that is going to change in every iteration, and basically it is incrementing depends upon your range. So the first value the range function has set in counter is 1. So in the first iteration you will see 1 on your screen. Now for the next one the counter will increment to 2. The value of counter will be incremented to 2. So in the second iteration you are going to see 2 on your output screen. Same for the third one, it is going to have 3 in the counter, and in the third iteration you will see 3 printed on your screen. And meanwhile, next for the next step, for the next iteration, it becomes the counter becomes 4. So in the fourth iteration you will see 4 in your screen. So this is how it is actually going to work. So in the fifth iteration the counter becomes 5, in the sixth iteration it becomes 6, in seventh iteration you will see 7 on your screen, in eighth iteration you will see 8, in the ninth iteration you will see 9, and in the 10th iteration you will see 10. However, in the 11th iteration you are not going to work because it is a stop. It will stop till 10. The range specified is 1 till 10. But remember that the range function is going to have a plus 1 on the second as a second parameter. 10 plus 1 is 11. So always you have to have a greater number, because it actually says that your range starts with 1 equals 1 and the range must be less than the value. So less than 11 means it will go from 1 to 10, or in other words, if you make the endpoint um, 21, so the range becomes 1 till 20. So I hope that you are getting my point. The range actually works less than the value that you set in your end point or in the second parameter of your range function. So I hope that you get it. In this range 1 till 11 that you said, you are actually going to have 10 iterations, and for every iteration the counter value is being printed on the screen. So that's a very simple function. Now let me do some changes in the for loop. Okay, keep watching the video because I'm going to show you the practical example of it using the Python online editor. So we will see that how we can code in a practical way. Okay, the next thing I want to tell you is how you can use a for loop in a different way. For counter in range. The range function can also have 3 parameters. And what is the third number for? Let's suppose the range is 1 till 10. So you are providing the start of your range, you are providing the end of your range, and then here you can provide that how many, what exactly your increment must be. It means that if you are setting the counter, so every time you want the counter value to increment by 2. It means that for, let's suppose if it is 1, then make it 3 for the next time, then make it 5 for the third time, then make it. So it is basically increment by 2. We call it increment by 2. So this is what we specify in the third parameter, that how many times you have to increment the counter. So if you write down 2 over here, it means that every time when the iteration will done, your counter value will increment by 2. So let me explain you the results if I make these changes. Okay, let's just delete all this. Okay, let's suppose the inside working is same. I have to print the counter value. So what will be the result in this way? Look at this. For the first time, the counter is set to 1. So you will see, let's suppose we have a counter variable, it's set to 1 initially. So you will see on your output screen, the output will be 1 for the first time. Then for the second iteration, it will see this 2. When it will see this 2, it will come to know that now I have to increment this 1 by 2. Incrementing by 2 means that I have to add 2 into it. 1 plus 2 becomes 3. So I will write down 3 in the counter for this second iteration. So in the second iteration, the counter value will be 3. And so this is your first iteration. This is the second iteration. In the third iteration, since the counter value was 3, so it becomes 3 plus 2, that is 5. Every time when the iteration will be done, the counter will be incremented by 2 for the next iteration. So now here 5 is going to be printed for the third iteration. Then for the next iteration, 5 plus 2 is 7. So the next value for iteration number 4, the counter value becomes 7. And after 7, when you are incrementing 7 in fifth iteration, so 7 plus 2 becomes 9. So in the fifth iteration, the counter value will be 9. And now remember that the range is less than 11, means the range is only 1 till 10. So if you increment in the sixth iteration, when you will increment the counter value, then you will see that 9 plus 2, the counter had a value 9 in the fourth, sorry, it had a value 9 in the fifth iteration. 9 plus 2 becomes 11. And 11 is not in our range. Our range is 1 till 10. Your iterations must be less than 11. So remember that if the counter value is 11 or greater than 11, then your loop is not going to run. So you are not going to have your sixth iteration. No more iterations because you are already reached the end of your range. So this is how it works. Here, the third parameter actually tells you that how many times, how much you want to increment your counter in each iteration. Let me just give you a small example. Let's suppose this thing becomes 3. So you know what? If it becomes 3, so the counter value will start from 1. Then it will increment. 1 plus 3 is 4. Then 4 plus 3 is 7. And then 7 plus 3 becomes 10. And then 10 plus, it will not go forward. 10 plus 3, at 10 plus 3 it becomes 13, which is out of your range. So you are not going to have your fifth iteration. So if you increment your counter with 3, then you are going to have only 4 iterations because the range is set from 1 to 10. So this is what I wanted to explain. Now I'm just quickly moving towards the Python editor to tell you that how we can do it practically. Okay, so here we go. This is my Python online editor. I'm just using the for keyword, the for loop. I will use the counter. You can name the counter X, Y, Z, whatever you want. I'm just writing down counter. N is my keyword. Then I will use the range function. Inside the range function, let me specify my starting is 1 and my ending is 10. 10 means that it will be 11, less than 11. So that is my range that I set. Now I press enter. Remember to use indentation. Indentation means that the code is going to be inside the for loop. So you have to print your counter. Counter. That's a simple code for your for loop that is going to print counter's value for the range 1 till 10. Let me quickly run this. Oh, it is showing error. I'm really sorry for this. It needs a colon over here in the first line. You need to have a colon. The colon is to show the start of the for loop. Remember that. And the next, all of your statements must be indented inside the for loop. Okay, so remember to put this colon, otherwise you will get error. Let me just run this. Okay, now you can easily see that what is your output. The counter starts with a value 1. It increments by 1. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, the other thing that I wanted to show you is when the counter increments by 2. And if the range is 1 till 11, so how many times it actually work? It will work till, I think, 5 iterations that we did. Yes, it will have a value 1. After that, it is 3, it is 5, it is 7, it is 9. After 9, it was 11, but 11 is out of our range. So it will not go for the 6th iteration. Now, let me just make this step, or it can be incremented by 3, your counter value. So what will happen? It will have 4 iterations only. 1, 4, 7, 10. And if I increment it 4 times, then I think the number of iterations becomes 3. So this is how your for loop is going to work. And if you want to print your name, just write down something, print. My name is Farwa. You want to print something. Let's suppose I want to print it 10 times. So the range must be 1 till, let's suppose I want to print it 5 times. So my range starts from 1 and it ends till 6. It must be less than 6. That exactly means 1 to 7 is my range. Let's run this to see Farwa 5 times. Very nice. This is how the iteration works in Python when you have a count control loop. Thank you so much for watching this video. Stay tuned, stay connected, and do not forget to subscribe the channel, because in the next video I will be using Visual Basic as my programming language in order to explain you the count control loops. So stay tuned, stay connected, and do not forget to subscribe. Bye bye.